We're here.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me.
Nothing new in the news lately at all.
Yeah. You texted me last night about the Trump Elon thing.
Yeah. My buddy sent me that, and we're just hanging out, I'm just hanging out with the kid, or actually I'm on the way home to go get the kid. And he says, dude, check this out. I'm like, this is, because there's so many fake profiles. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, this is from Elon to Trump. And I'm like, oh boy, buckle the heck up.
You're the first person to send that to me.
Was I?
And in fact, I have many people that are very, focused on the news, but you are the one that showed that to me first.
Hey, man.
I don't know if you were glued to your Twitter or X or.
I guess my buddy was.
Okay.
He sent it to me, and then I was like, yeah, I gotta send this over to him. And,
so what do you think?
Well, okay. Here's my 2 cents on it. There's 3 ways to looking at it. You're seeing what it is. Okay, this is the truth, and they are beefing, and we kind of know that. Trump here, he'll just say whatever. Elon, you got the most powerful man in the world and the most richest man in the world. They really don't have a filter. Okay, I can buy it on that a little bit. I think it's more to my second opinion on it is I think it's a little bit of a, hey, let's act like this. Let's do this. Let's expose a couple things. Let's bring some stuff out. Let's get some folks to bite a little bit, and let's see where they go with it. And I think it's kind of a little bit of that. And then third option, all hell's about to break loose. And I hope it's not that one.
Yeah, it's hard to speculate. Oh, I did. My response I posted on X was, well, just from memory, I think it's more that if there was something incriminating about Trump, it would have leaked already.
Right.
Because the incentives are all aligned to do that. So it's really an unprecedented moment in American history. Like you said, the richest guy in the world and the president. And is it a controlled thing, a strategic chess moves? In my experience, I find, you and I have talked about this with human nature. I just think that ego and just competition inside and institutions, I believe, have become so corrupt that it's basically the individual egos battling it out right now.
Right.
But it's very interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how other parties are going to play out to it as well. Like, the responses to that. You're already seeing some folks say, I saw a bumper sticker. It was probably made up fake online, but it said, I bought this Tesla after Elon disowned Trump, So it's like you're already, it's already the memes are just making themselves, which is, as a comedy guy, I'm like, this is great. But at a serious standpoint, I think I saw a couple more sophisticated folks than I say, God help us, I
did see that.
Yeah,
Alex Jones said that.
Alex said that. A lot of people are like, oh man, here we go.
What's interesting to me, I'm not really much of a commentator. In other words, I don't like to speculate on things I don't know.
Right.
But what I do know is that most people in politics respond to leverage. They respond to threat. And people don't, lost in any of this is any semblance of right and wrong. And in this whole Epstein thing, it's not really about Epstein the man. It's about the principle of people not doing the right thing because there's some blackmail or leverage that's out there. And no one's really ever broken that story. It's just... Yeah. It's as American as apple pie. People in Washington are not acting in accordance to what's right, and we're in Annapolis, which is not too far from D.C. You run into these people without naming names. They do it out of their own self-interest and their own self-preservation, and to avoid being exposed for evil things they have done.
Yeah,
and that's hurting America.
Yeah,
and I believe the truth is going to come out, but you have to have brave people willing to speak the truth, willing to get smeared and attacked. And evil tends to project onto you what evil is.
Right.
So they will accuse you of what they do.
Yes.
And
it's the
really
narcissistic
hard.
Values that you see, and I know.
As I was coming into your place, I'm late, and I apologize. I was in the parking lot outside of your building. On the phone in a deposition. Deposition is a videotape deposition. I was over the laptop. I was not a witness. we were deposing somebody else, and it never ceases to amaze me how evil and envy and greed just sort of swirl together. And you see it a lot in D.C., you see a lot in L.A., but
I saw it a lot in your most recent video.
You watched the film? Or which one?
The one you just released.
Truth Inside Veritas. Hour-long video.
One thing to say, when's part 2 coming out?
Oh, dude, that's what we're working on right now. It took us 2 months to produce that. Yeah, it was a very cinematic thing.
That was a at first when you start to watch it, it's kind of unraveling a little bit. You're going, I want to say somewhere around, because it's not a long film. It's maybe about an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe around the 15, 20-minute mark when all this evidence starts coming out to where, you have all these people bashing you for whatever reason, and then they're privately texting you.
Yeah.
What? That's so weird. That's so, I wouldn't do this if, I love you, you're like this. And then
they called me sexual expletives, which I will not say on the air.
And then the switch happened again to F you, F blah, you.
And then I want to work for you.
Right.
So, okay, we're
that's so bizarre, man.
I'm wearing your hat. I love sailing.
Appreciate you, dude.
This is the one thing I do to get my mind off of what I do, and I really mean it. I escape it.
Sure.
But I was sitting there in the parking lot outside Bacon Sales today thinking, it's like, imagine you're a captain of a ship or a boat, and there's an iceberg over there, and you're the captain. You say, okay, we got to turn hard starboard to avoid hitting that iceberg. And your shipmates, they say, absolutely not. And I say, okay, you're relieved from your command, or you're terminated. You're walk the plank, or whatever. And they say, no, we're going to throw the captain overboard, and we're going to turn port.
Yeah.
And then they hit the iceberg. Okay?
That's kind of what happened.
Maybe iceberg is this is the year 2025. I don't know what the Chesapeake Bay version of this is. You're going to hit something.
You hit Thomas Point Lighthouse.
You hit Thomas Point Lighthouse. Okay, you hit the lighthouse, and now the boat is sinking. People are jumping overboard. They're shooting each other. The captain's way out there in like Delaware or someplace. And then the people who have mutinied or are killing each other, they go, the captain abandoned us. One of the guys said, we're talking about Project Veritas. One of the guys said to me, James abandoned us. I said, I'm a little farther than abandon you. I tried to terminate you. Yeah. And then so why is this important? Is this just inside baseball? Is just an internal conflict? I don't. I think the Truth Inside Veritas is a broader illustration of human nature and original sin. And it's so important. I read a book recently about sailing that if you're the captain, you can have someone else on the boat who is friends with all of the people there. Maybe everyone likes him, but not everyone's going to like the captain, because when you're in the middle of a gale and you have to grab that line, there's no time to debate the captain.
Yeah, and that's on when we talk about weeding people in and out. I've been on a handful of races, offshore races, to where the folks who are in it, the folks who know how to do their job, they're going to jump on it. One, they're kind of going to know what to do already, but especially when the captain tells them what to do, they're going to hop on it. The weak-minded folks, they're going to argue. They're going to fight back. Oh, I don't want to climb this mast to take down this sail that's about to shred. Oh, I don't want to go up there and undo this spinnaker pull. It's blowing too hard. You need to turn down more. Well, we're going to lose we're going to lose 2 boat lengths if we do that. I've been on a couple of those boats, and then typically those folks aren't allowed back on the boat because they're making the boat go slower.
Why do they do that?
There's experienced sailors, and there's folks who bite off a little bit more than they can chew. A lot of people don't understand when you get out on a 50 to 60, 70 foot boat, and it's got a 100-foot stick, mast, and you have all this load, it's blowing 20 knots. You have all this load on the rig, on the sails. You make one minor adjustment, man, people can get hurt, And so the captain usually is going to, first and foremost, he wants safety for everybody. Then he wants to make sure that the ship doesn't go down. He wants to make sure that the rig stands up and all that. And he'll say, hey, whether you like it or not, do this X, Y, or Z. Or if you're not up for it, you go inside. And I've been on boats where these world-class ocean sailors are, this, that, and whatever. And then when it kicks up to 30 knots and it comes to reef and everything, and you're heeled over and something breaks, you'll see them almost curl up into a ball, and then I'm like, wait a second, it's, you sort of figure out, and the
interesting,
and the fight of it all against Mother Nature, you figure out who's there, who's the ride or die.
Adversity brings out the real nature of people.
100%.
So, and that's something you can't fake.
Yeah,
you curl up in a fetal position because they're scared, or is it what is it?
They might be scared, but they also might be. Yeah, anxiety might get to them. It's
a little terrifying that it's 30 knots. I mean, for me, it's like 20. Anything over like 26 gets a little weird, because you start hearing sounds through the shrouds, and it sounds like a horror movie.
Starts whistling to you.
It's just a little too.
Oh yeah, man.
I don't think I've been in over 27, 28. I don't think
that's breezy.
That's breezy.
Yeah.
That's pretty heavy.
My sweet spot is 10 to 15. 10 to 15 knots. I'm good. I love it. Anything in 20, okay. I'm going to have to put a reef in. Anything over 30, we'll see. If you're sailing with my dad,
30.
Well, if you're sailing with my dad and I, if our boat's in the water in January, which it's in the water year round right here in Annapolis, if it hits 30 and we have the day off, we're going to go. We're going.
But it's sustained 30.
Well, you'll probably be 20 gust up to 30, 20, 25 gust up to 30, And
you reef it twice?
We'll put it at 2 reef, or we'll just run with a working head sail with a working jib. And we'll just run off of that. But we have a Mariner 36. It's right around 20,000 pounds. So it's like 4,000 pounds heavier. What
year is this?
88 Mariner 36.
Mariner 36.
Yeah, and it's a heavy boat, and so it likes the heavy wind.
I see.
And so you get that thing on a 20 knot breeze on a reach, just like how in that photo unfurled on almost like a beam reach.
Yeah,
that thing is going to sit in the pocket and it's just going to run. You don't even have to touch the wheel, man.
Wow.
But on a light wind day, not so much. It's like it's not really going anywhere. And we're talking sailing, so we're talking
I could talk about this for hours. I sailed the Chesapeake. I didn't tell you. I don't know if I told you. I sailed it in Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
If you recall, here in Maryland, this past Thanksgiving, I sailed from Cape May, New Jersey, down to Norfolk in a 45-foot sail, Alden.
Did you go through the C&D Canal?
And I had some diesel issues, so I was supposed to go through in October, and then you guys had really beautiful weather, and like the first week of November, it was like 70 degrees, and then it plummeted. And Thanksgiving, do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was like 32 degrees.
Yeah,
I was sailing the Chesapeake. There wasn't anybody out there, and the water was really low, I guess because the wind blows it down south, right?
Yeah, we had some heavy breezes back then.
So north of here, on the eastern shore, there's a marine, I forgot the name of it, but there's a tiny little inlet with a very narrow entrance. And I ran aground, and it was just so shallow.
Well, that's how you know you're a sailor of the Chesapeake now.
Yeah.
There's folks who have ran the ground, and there's folks who are liars. Everyone's ran aground here in the Chesapeake. Well, and the good part is it's mud, so you're not really messing up.
Well, as long as you don't run aground at high tide.
That's true.
But I ran aground, and I was in a rush, so I got the tow guy to come get me off, and so I got out of there, and I had my forward sail, my jib up, and no main, and it was about 27 knots, and I was flying from there to Annapolis.
Gotcha.
And it was I enjoyed that. I soloed the Chesapeake on Thanksgiving.
Nice, man.
And I went all the way down, and then there was a nice day. It was about 45 degrees down to Solomon's. It felt a little eerie.
Yeah.
There was nobody there, nobody out. It's a different
feeling.
feeling.
It opens up down there. So you can at night you can be in the middle of Chesapeake and not see land. Once you get further down there.
I went down to the Potomac, and it's where the Potomac meets the Chesapeake. It's pretty crazy right there.
Oh yeah.
And then I stayed the night in Kinsale, and now we're talking. It's December 27th. I came back. I'm crazy.
What boat is this in?
This is a bigger boat. This is an Alden.
Okay.
A sail of Alden, and I trying to get it down to Florida, and I left at 27th. It was eerie. It was fog. You couldn't see anything, so kind of stupid. I went out in the fog, and you couldn't see 10 feet in front of me. And in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay, off the coast of, what's it called, Reedville?
Okay, yeah.
Ran into a gillnet in the middle.
Yep.
What is a thing doing in the middle of the bay there?
Yeah, they have fishing nets all around that are just in the middle of the bay. They actually have a naval ordnance testing site. Mm-hmm. So are you familiar with the Chesapeake Bay schooner race at all?
No.
It happens in October. So it's pretty much from Annapolis down to Norfolk. We're shooting down, and about, I don't know, maybe 50 miles north of Norfolk, there is a naval ordnance testing area where they will shoot at these markers.
Oh.
3 a.m, we're sailing, and it is like, it's blowing pretty good. We're kind of tired. We had no wind for a while. Now we had wind. And so me and my father and another guy are up. We're heading down, and I'm looking at the chart, and I'm like, wait a second. Here's our mark right here. Here's where the naval markers are here. I'm like, okay, all right, we're good. It's 3 a.m, nothing to worry about. But then it started to die down. We're maybe 20 miles before coming up on it. Breeze dies. Before the breeze dies, my shift goes and passes out because we ended at 3. Next guys come on from 3 to 6. Breeze dies, wind shifted. Somehow we went real far west. And then I woke up with some coffee, and I wake up to boom, 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 boom. Like, sounds like cannons going off.
That's just terrifying.
First thing I think is, I knew exactly what happened.
Oh.
Wind died, and they were shooting blanks. But we're maybe, I don't know, a quarter mile away from them, and you can see the smoke coming out. But we're in line of sight between them and these testing marks. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Imagine telling that to the race committee. Yeah, how'd you get this huge hole in your sail? Well,
How long does it take to go from Annapolis to Norfolk, or all things being equal?
If the breeze is good in that race on a schooner, when you're averaging 9 to 15 knots, and 15 knots being on the heavy end, like it's blowing. And on relay, you're probably like 9 to 11 knots. You're about 2 days.
Yeah. On the Catalina, it was 6.2 is my top, and then on the Alden it's about 9.
Yeah.
But as the Chesapeake of Reedville ran to a gillnet, and then this is my Chesapeake Bay story. I was scared to death because I thought I hit something. When you hit that thing and then the boat is not moving because the gillnet is attached to something that's anchored.
Sure.
And then this is like December 28th, and some Reedville guy comes down there and tows me in, and then the next day a guy from what's that island where people speak funny? In the Tangier?
Oh, yeah, the Tangier.
Tangier man comes. And, can't understand a word he says.
Smith Island, too, as well.
Can't understand anything he says. I remember, and this guy's like hardcore. He jumps in the water.
Eastern Shore accent.
Hardcore, attaches to his car battery some type of electrical cord to his face so that he can breathe, and then jumps in. I've never seen anything like it. And then he's like, wait a second. And I can't even do the accent. He's like, are you that guy that did the videos? Are you the guy? Yeah. He recognized me. And when he recognized me, he was like, all right, that's good.
Yeah.
And then I continued on. But how do we get down this pathway?
Well, we were just
sailing.
Talking, sailing.
Getting my mind off of things.
Yeah.
The captain of the ship. I mean, human nature is, and you were mentioning on the boat in the storms. I find what you were just talking about and what we're talking about so interesting because it's about human nature and leadership and entitlement.
Right.
And there used to be organizations and institutions that there was more integrity, I feel.
Sure.
There was more there were values that we all adhered. There was societal cohesion. Mm-hmm. And I think things are just falling apart. People don't trust anything. Everyone's out for themselves. I think it was Sean Ryan who recently said everything's a lie.
Yeah.
That resonated with me.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about sailing is when you're in a hurricane, there isn't any time to debate.
There's no fakeness.
There's still, And by the way, running Project Veritas was like being in a hurricane.
Yeah.
The FBI is raiding you. You're getting sued. I've been sued dozens of times. You're in court. You're just constantly in a storm.
Yeah.
And the other guy thinks, oh, that's easy. I could do that. Oh, I don't need him. I can do that. I don't need the captain. Screw the captain. I'm the captain now.
Yeah.
It's like that movie with Tom Hanks. I'm the captain now, the Somali pirate.
So I have a little, I think a good opinion, maybe good. That's relative, right? What I think happens with folks who you're a high value an individual in the sense that you run this team, you run this organization from the ground up. You also get clout with that. You get fame with that, and you get trouble with that. It's those three things are always going to happen wherever you go, especially in today's world. You could literally solve cancer. Somebody's going to be mad at you about it. Probably the pharmaceutical industry, they'd probably, you'd be in the back of a truck. But
yeah.
So where I'm getting at with this is when you bring folks on board who aren't they might not be tried and true, but they understand the mission, they understand the objective, but a lot they want to get closer to you. They see the fame, they see this, how can I get myself closer to you, and in what manner? And then the second part to that is you start to befriend them, and then they start to realize that you are a normal person. Hey, I'm just a normal guy. And once they get that, then they get this sort of ego, well, if he's just a normal guy, well, I can do this too. Mm-hmm. That's the second part. And then the third part, and this is just what I've seen in business. This is what I've seen.
You've seen this in your life?
I've seen it with people who get starstruck. I've seen it with people because my wife, she gets starstruck. She sees somebody at a country concert. Oh my God, me. I saw the dude, who is it? Morgan Wallen's buddy, who I forget his name, shorter guy, but he writes a lot of songs for him.
Yeah.
And so I'm just shooting the shit with them, like sort of backstage. And then I took a couple photos with them because I see all these people are coming up to him. I'm like, well, I don't really know who it is. And then my wife's like, you don't know who that was? But that was so-and-so. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I've seen in other industries, other businesses, and knowing famous football players that I've known and basketball players that I've known, you'll start to see when people get leached into something, then they'll try to turn things for their own. And that's just on an individual scale. In your regard, you're going to have what I think may have happened by watching your film is a lot of those people, man, I love you, you're great, you're this. But history shows, look at the Bible shows how many people, Judas, the number one, his boy. And then he just he's the first one. These are his disciples, and these are the people who set him up. And
I read in this book by David Mamet, the new book out by, I love David Mamet, the playwright. He wrote, Jesus didn't ask for money. He suggested each share with the needy. His infrastructure was limited to 12 self-supporting adherents, and 8.3% of them sold him out.
Yep.
So even, remember, I think you're right, it goes back to the Bible.
It's always happened. It's always been a part of history. Backstabbing has always happened.
And all of us.
And I think that maybe a little bit of that happened when, or maybe there was a little bit more pushes when you started looking into Pfizer a little bit, and then maybe some of that. What do you think about that?
I mean, in the film, you saw in the deposition, the board member said, we're co-invested in these companies. I didn't know that, and right. I think they should have disclosed these Petrogen and these other biomedical companies. First of all, unrelated to whether or not there was an influence on the topic, if you're in a nonprofit that does investigative journalism, mm-hmm. I think you have to disclose when you are soliciting and business with each other, because when money is involved, it can create that conflict.
Sure.
But I don't want to say too much because this is part one. And you just said there's part 2, 3, 4, and 5. So
it's all good.
I think it cuts very deep, both spiritually and financially. And I was naive. In other words, I was blind, but now I see. My only, and perhaps this is a good thing, but also perhaps a naive thing. The only thing that always governed my behavior was I always just, let me try to do the right thing. And I don't say that to pat myself on the back. I think I was blind a little bit to the motives of other people. I think you're right on point when you say, we're talking about people who are starstruck, and I'll hire them, and they'll just be like they almost like they deify me, which is incredibly unhealthy.
Right.
It's almost like they want to be me. Yeah. And you saw that in the film, and I've learned that these are the people that I should not be hiring, because ultimately they'll work to try to destroy you. But this is not unique to me or my story, my life. But I think it's so important in politics. We're talking about sailing, politics, and my life experience at Project Veritas. In politics, how many of these people in D.C. are actually there to do the right thing? And here's an even deeper question, which I can't answer. Cash and what do you think of Cash and Pam? Call Cash, Pam, and Dan Bongino and all. It's like, I think they're good people, but if you were to take you, Stevie, and put you as the director of the FBI, you're not a lawyer, right?
Nope.
But let's just say you're a good man. I think it'd be difficult for you to succeed in that position because you're running a bureaucracy and you're in charge of a ship of people that you can't trust and that will not follow your orders and will not do the right thing. It's a tangled web. So I don't know how to answer those questions about those people in D.C., but what I do know is that the people that are drawn to run for office and the people that are in charge, it's all about self-interest. And what I was trying to do was build an organization. The only compass, the only rule was always do the right thing. Now that sounds very good, but in abstraction, let's say you're getting sued. Well, don't settle the lawsuit. Don't settle. Do you know what it means to not settle 24 lawsuits? Do you know what that means? That means you're going to be litigating through discovery, depositions. You're going to be subpoenaed.
Nonstop.
Nonstop. And everyone on your team is going to be subpoenaed. Yep. You're going to be threatened by opposing counsel who says, well, if you lie under oath, that's perjury. It's the process that is the punishment.
It's built to beat you down.
Yes, by its nature, the process is so punishing. So what is a weak person going to do? Why don't you just settle this lawsuit, James? Well, if you settle the lawsuit, that means you might have to apologize for something you didn't do wrong. And if I'm a journalist and if I'm all about truth and bearing no false witness, and then that's incongruent with settling the lawsuit. So then you start having people on your ship who say, well, you're not doing the right thing. You're spending $5 million on legal fees. I want that money in my pocket. Why are we paying lawyers that money? I could give myself a raise. Right. These are just natural human emotions, entitlement.
I think one of the funniest things I saw that is that not just one person, but their first go-to thing when they try to out you for something, when they try to get you, and they're trying to, well, you blah, blah, it was what you need all those Ubers,
yeah.
And I'm like, wait a second, we're talking about a guy here.
It's stupid.
Who correct me, I mean, if I'm wrong, but you have a mark on your back from a lot of people. Maybe it's best that you are in a driver
with a driver
where they can pick you up and take you there. Maybe an SUV that could take a hit if somebody try to, do something. That's just like really. That was the first guy's first thing.
It was a pretext. All of this was kind of like people have said it's a pretext. Their plan failed, so they needed to find anything. And we're talking about the movie, The Truth Behind Veritas, the black cars. It was wrong for them to take black cars. Yeah,
that's bizarre. I take a black car when I'm going to the bar and I don't feel like driving. And guess what? It's got to be an XL because I'm 6'10". It's like...
Well, there's that, but also, so they would say, well, you can take an Uber X. The problem with Uber X is you don't know who the driver is, and I'm on the telephone talking about confidential operations.
Yeah, you don't
Not
know
to
if
mention
they're
it's a
recording.
security issue.
Right, sure.
Not to mention it's a bunch of different, more reliable. Ubers are generally unreliable.
Sure.
Sometimes they don't show up. I mean, you were very courteous to drive me to the airport the other day. It's difficult. They cancel. So when your time is so leveraged, when you're an executive, this is, by the way, I shouldn't even have to say this. So self-evident, but I have to say it. When you're an executive, you have secure transportation.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a silly thing. The sandwiches and stole sandwiches.
so
You
bizarre,
yelled at me
man.
one time. You what else? Oh, I don't like how your girlfriend dresses. These are just petty.
That's wild.
I think I said in my reporting, I think people get jealous.
Yeah.
And what are the seven deadly sins? Like envy, greed, and pride. Mm-hmm. So I think, going back to your point about the country music concert, you get starstruck. I think that's really profound. You realize that the person you looked up to is just like you or I.
Yeah.
In fact,
sometimes you might even be like, don't always meet your heroes.
Yeah,
you know?
No man is a hero to his butler.
Yeah.
No man is a hero to his butler. You will discover that the star in Hollywood or the politician that you see on Fox News is not. It's not that he's a bad guy, but he's not. He's a normal person. He poops. He makes mistakes. Sometimes he might be unfaithful or whatever
Sure.
the issues are.
Might be in a bad mood. It don't
Might be in a
matter.
bad mood, and when you see that, like you say, you think, oh, I can do it.
Right.
I can do what he did.
Sure.
I think there's an element of that, and I was frankly probably a little bit naive to human nature, but I don't think that I could have.
What have you learned in the aspect of, do you think that you were going a direction and maybe a little too fast and not checking and dotting the.
Here's what the mistake I made. You get all these people every day that beg me. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. 100 times a day. Please tell my story. Please come help me.
I believe
expose
it. I believe it. Yeah.
Now probably 1,000 times a day
Yeah.
because I have a monopoly on what I do. You guys are in the sailboat consignment business. You kind of have a monopoly on what you do. Nobody really does what I do because everyone I've met in my life in this business is so
and they
close.
want to talk to you.
They want to talk to me, but everyone's so closed off, rightfully so. People are wary and they only trust their wife I was the opposite. I said I was like Noah's Ark. Everyone come into my operation and I will help the world. Well, that's obviously that's actually not good.
Yeah.
But I thought it was good.
Right.
So when someone messages me on Instagram and said, I'm a guy in Missouri and unemployed and I would beg to do what you do. I will lick envelopes and mop the floors. My attitude was like, everybody in.
Yeah.
No vetting.
Sure.
That was my mistake. Mm-hmm. It was born out of a place of being naive. I was trying to do right. I wanted to help these people, but I think that the challenge, of course, is you have to have boundaries and you have to have discretion in my line of work. You can't trust everybody. That's where I made a mistake. So,
I saw a little snippet of you with a Veritas logo behind you. Are we doing like an acquireship?
I'm in talks to acquire them, and I can't say more than what I just said because I swore to the court that I wouldn't. I'm a man of my word. But the bottom line is we're in talks. We're still in this litigation.
Sure.
I got to go to court on Monday in New York. But yeah, it's any other reactions you had watching that film? Any other moments that struck you? Because you've heard a little bit of the story from me directly.
Let's see. Well, the idea, just the whole idea of it. I mean, there's so many different key parts to it. I think that the main key part was when all the evidence started coming out. When people were texting you directly, that really was just like really.
Yeah,
like they're trying to screw you publicly, and then they're trying to come in the back door with, "Can I get a little doggy treat, James? Please, can I get a little doggy treat? You still like me?" And then after that, they try to get you again. Never mind, you're F. They start calling you all these names. I'm like, whoa, what the?
It's almost like they want to control me.
Yeah. And the fact they did it that one time when you were in that interview, how many times did you say at least a dozen? can I
respond to this?
Respond to this?
And the board member said, no, 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 you will not respond.
And then, do you have anything to say to this? Like, yeah. Can I respond? No.
And then under oath, he's like, it's not like I stopped James from responding. So these people completely contradicted each other.
Right.
Yeah, it's I think this cuts so deep. I think it's deeper than people can realize, and it really comes down to the heart of darkness, that line that separates good and evil runs through each and every one of us. And I would even go so far as to say it's not about the other. Oh, they're the ones who are envious. They're the ones who are greedy. I would say that these things exist within us. Mm-hmm. And to the extent that we, as human beings, can overcome those deadly sins, I'm talking about envy, pride, and greed, within ourselves, that's our first step to changing the world. Sure. It's always the other guy that's the bad guy.
Right.
But, look at history. It's called bloody and barbaric and
yeah, that's it, man.
Horrible. Everything has been throughout the
a lot of mischievous and
we have one opportunity here in America to have a country where we're equal under the law, and
sure,
there's a republic if we can keep it. And I don't know if things can hold. And I think social media is one of the main reasons why these so-called sins, these bizarre behaviors, these narcissistic tendencies within us. But don't be fooled. Every one of us has a little bit of that envy in us.
Yeah.
It's like, what is a friend? A friend is someone who's happy for you when you are successful. It's very hard to find.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've met a few of them.
You have those?
Oh, yeah.
Or you have the good ones?
Well,
few in your life?
You have both. You have the ones that you know who they are. You know they're a good person, or else you wouldn't be hanging out with them. But I have friends who I keep at an arm's distance, and it's people that I grew up with that they get upset when they see success with somebody else. And I try to talk to them. I'm like, well, what is it? And it's just jealousy. They
get upset when you talk to one of their friends?
No, they get upset when they see success with somebody else. They start coming up, well, if my dad gave me all this money, X, Y, Z. Well, if I had this X,
Victim
Y, Z.
mentality.
I'm like, wait a second, you had everything that person has. To me, my friends know me, I'm the ultimate hype man. If I see somebody doing something good, if I see someone even thinking about starting a business, I'm like, I will be your consultant. I've done this for 30 years. I know so many different aspects of business. Let me help you. And folks, and there's, buddies of mine who are in the trade business, HVAC, electric. And I say, you want to know true money? You want to know what your true value is? Start your own business. I trust you. There's few of my buddies, I hope you're watching this, I trust you to start your own thing, venture out, then you get the employee base. But so many people, they're just, I don't want to say scared to take that next step, because it is a big journey when you have somebody.
They're afraid.
They're afraid
to fail.
Yeah. For me, it's all about risk, man.
If you look at all about risk, meaning you have to take the risk.
Yeah.
Well, you're a sailor with your dad, the 30 knots. I think it's great that you have this organization with your father. I think that's one of the great things about your life. I worked with my dad growing up on rental properties. It was my dad and my grandfather. I'm James O'Keefe III, and we were in a pickup truck from when I was like 7 years old to 16 years old, running around with plywood and caulk and roofing materials. I hated it, man. I knew I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
When I went to college, I knew I was. My mind.
You weren't meant for it. You were meant for doing what you're doing.
I felt a lot of guilt not doing it. Actually, I don't know how to explain it. It was like I felt it was in my bloodline, and I really was so distracted. I knew my grandfather would say, "Your mind is meant to do something else, like journalism or some."
Yeah.
That's not the way that he was. He was dyslexic, but your father reminds me of like growing up with my dad. And
what made you get into sailing?
My mother's father, in way upstate New York, which is where I was last week, on Black Lake, which is near the St. Lawrence River in the Thousand Islands.
Yeah, you sent me some of those photos, man. It's beautiful up there.
Yeah, he had a sunfish. Was it called sunfish?
Yeah.
It was like a pole on a board.
Yep.
And I was 7 years old. I was scared to death when it would broach or heel.
Yeah.
And those things just tip over easily. I had this wild fear of broaching on that tiny little, whatever that was, 11-foot surfboard with a pole.
Sure. That's pretty much what it is.
And I was scared to death to fall over. And one day I was with my uncle around this lake. This is in like almost Canada. And we falled over. I was like, well, that wasn't so bad. And you have to stand on the centerboard to get it back up. Of course, I'm only like, at the time, like 65, 70 pounds. But each summer I would keep doing it. And then I found it thrilling, true story, that line that separates broaching from knot on the heel, and this is a tiny little sailboat. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I found that thrilling, almost tipping over, but not.
It's that danger.
And
then survival.
Yeah, on a bigger boat, it ain't like that. You don't broach. I've never broached in my entire career after that little thing. But so Black Lake is a pretty large lake. It's a glacial lake. And one day I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep going over to that point. You know what? I'm going to keep going around that island. You know what? I'm going to sail around an entire big island, around the entire lake. And that's what I did. And it was like very fast. It was once I overcame that fear of broaching, instantly I was very empowered, and I sailed that entire, I must have sailed, 8 miles that day on that tiny little sunfish when I was like 9, 10 years old. And then I was addicted, and I went to Boy Scout camp, sailed some more, and then I bought a Balboa 25, a useless, disgusting. I
had a 26.
Horrible boat. I'll tell that story, but that's where I got started. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now you're at this highly, I would call it stressful. A lot of things going every day. You said 100 people a day messaging. You constant contacts. You're dealing with some high level people. We have to have some sort of relief. And the other day, when it was Aaron Rodgers was on Rogan's podcast, and I heard Joe mention, he said, he's doing the videos, and but what's up with the DJing thing or whatever? And then Aaron's like, but the videos are good. And Joe should know he does so many different things. He's a comedy, archery.
That's true.
The health. The what do they call it? Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm not sure if he still does anymore.
Thing. I mean, he does it all.
So he does all this stuff. He should be the one to know. You got to have this relaxation. So you do DJing too. And I like that. Sure, I gotta get me one of those.
I'll give you one. This is called Make America Rave Again. It's got the tour dates.
Oh, nice.
The tour dates on there.
Are you touring this year?
Well, we have our own events. So
gotcha.
OMG has, I suppose we are. We're going to July 11th. We're doing a party at Charlie Kirk's Turning Point Group
no shit.
In Tampa. And I got into music and theater. And you're right. It's the release that you got to have joy in your life. You have to have joy.
Yeah.
Now, what I do brings me joy, but you get kind of burned out if you do, on pursuing justice day in and day out.
Because it's never ending. It's never ending.
It's a never-ending campaign.
It's like working at the post office. They said, what was that Seinfeld episode? He was like, "It's the mail. It just keeps coming, Jerry. It doesn't stop." So you have to have this. So you have sailing, you have DJing.
You're giving. When someone says, "I need your help," you give of yourself. You give your time. It's very philanthropic in nature. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily transactional to go tell these stories. So you end up depleted.
Sure.
I was going to ask you what you think about that. It's very strange. I'd love to go on Rogan's show.
I think eventually you'll be on there. We mentioned earlier, Trump was going to be on his show. He kind of looked into be on his show well before he was on there. So, that was, people say that was the most viewed rating one. That was like oh my gosh, that's the holy grail of the podcast.
And he waited until the last minute to get on there.
Bet David, even who you were on his podcast a couple weeks ago, he went on Joe's podcast. And
Pat Ben David did?
Patrick Bet David. PBD. He went on Joe's podcast like a few months before he had Trump on. And Patrick said, Joe, You got to be the one to do it, bro. You got to be the one to do it.
That's a good impression. That's good impression.
That's my best.
That's good.
I like PBD, man. He brings he plays this devil's advocate.
Did you see him with me? A little bit of that.
Yeah.
I thought he was very sympathetic with me.
Yeah.
And the first time around he wasn't. He was definitely, and I mean this is in a good way. He's a good interview. He was cross-examining me. I think he was rightfully skeptical at first and wanted to ascertain my character.
Yeah.
But I felt he was very supportive in that.
Yeah.
Was that after I met you or recently?
That was
a few days later.
You came, so you stopped by here the day after that. Yeah.
After that,
and
I was
you
exhausted.
did pulls. You did pulls. Yeah. When I saw you, man, you looked like you just ran a marathon.
I did. I did. So going back to this whole DJing thing, I think it's a release. I think it's people don't understand it, and I don't. That's a whole other topic of discussion why they're that way. But yeah, he does stand-up comedy. He does archery. For me, it's like
he owns a club,
owns a nightclub, and I don't think anybody would ever question that.
Yeah,
I don't know if Tucker or these other guys were involved in. I mean, Tucker did Dancing with the Stars. I don't know. Well, that's a whole other podcast. Why do people treat me differently? But less about me personally. I think more let's just talk about the release of it and the joy that it brings. I think for me, music is transcends politics, and there's no sides.
I agree, 100%.
The Beatitudes, the true, the good, and the beautiful. There's no side. There's no part. There's no factions. The problem with democracy is it creates factions. The problem with the Republican Party and the conservative movement right now is it's when you have such a big tent, there are an infinite number of factions. People start going to war with each other. Now Elon's at war with Trump. What's beautiful about DJing and music and EDM music, it's not about drugs or anything. It's about
releasing your soul a little bit.
Yeah. It's art is a way of truth telling, just like a painting is a way of truth telling, just like a poem or Shakespeare or dancing. These things bring people together in the best ways possible. And when I go to a Turning Point event and I'm bringing on singers, now they call it Holy House, like Jimmy Levy sings Holy House, and I'll be DJing and he'll be actually preaching the gospel, but people think they're listening to Rufus Du Sol. There is no liberal conservative.
Yeah.
And so that brings me joy, and sailing brings me joy. When I was up on Lake Ontario, I genuinely felt like my batteries were recharging. I don't do this enough, I think. Yeah. I think I run myself into the ground.
Well, I think you have a few acts in life, and you're on a new act right now. Your last act was getting the separating yourself from Veritas, or mutually, unmutually, whichever way you want to call it. You're in this act now, and whenever you go into a new act in life, you know what to stay away from, and you know what to do more. And I believe you're on the path, whether if it's sailing more or whether if it's, going out and just releasing a little bit more, you have to do it. The stuff that the Line in the Sand movie.
That was insane.
I watched that, and, my wife's watching the trailer for it. She's just like, what?
It looks like a movie that I hired actors.
Yeah.
But it was all real.
Yeah.
That took a lot out of me.
That's really a daunting.
That was beyond daunting. That was 5 movies in one.
Sometimes it's hard to watch that stuff.
The little girls in the desert and stuff like that.
Well, you're boots on the ground, man.
Yeah.
You're doing it. You're putting your money where your mouth is.
We show, don't tell.
Yeah.
So the thing about what we do, which is different than what most people in media do, I would say 99% of people tell, they don't show. Even the idea of a podcast, and there's a lot of them, and some of them are wonderful, and they're very more talented than I would be at it, but they just talk.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to show someone with their own eyes so that you don't have to trust me by virtue of the decree that I'm trusted because I'm credible. That's the paragon of journalism. Trust me because I say so. Case in point, Jake Tapper. None of the other stuff you knew for the last 2 years matters. I'm a credible journalist. I'm going to write a book about how Joe Biden
is the healthiest man alive. Isn't that what he did or something?
I have the book in the car. I just released a book about Newsflash, Joe Biden had some issues upstairs. Yeah, we all knew this.
Yeah.
But because I'm a credible journalist, so that's the problem with journalism. And for me, it's like the solution is give people primary source evidence and don't trust me by virtue of the decree that I say that I'm credible. Let me show you the evidence for yourself. Sure. And I would tell people, don't trust anything unless you can hear it and see it and feel it and smell it for yourself. Primary source information. That's, to me, real investigative journalism. But the problem with it is it's extremely difficult to do. The costs, the liabilities, it's dangerous. It's mostly the time and the cost. That Line in the Sand movie, the proudest achievement of my life. If people say, by far, Line in the Sand. I rode the train of death.
Yeah.
And my colleague Anthony, very brave guy, YouTuber, got kidnapped before I even met him. And survived,
Jeez.
You know, and I think those scenes of the girls in the desert, you mentioned they're hard to watch.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the American people are capable or willing to how do I say this?
Acknowledge, understand.
It's not understanding. I don't think it's very hard for you to sit in a theater or on your couch and watch that stuff.
Yeah.
And not feel shame.
And know that it's happening a few hundred miles from most likely where you live.
Probably at least in Maryland a few times, but certainly in Miami and Los Angeles and New Mexico. But more deeply, I think it's hard to see those girls in the desert and not feel shame. The shame is, what am I doing to solve this?
Right.
And if you can't do anything because you drink your coffee, go to work in the morning, feed your kids, and you're a school teacher or whatever, and God bless you because you're just a salt of the earth American, but you feel shame. Mm-hmm. So when people come up to me, James O'Keefe, and like, what can I do? For many years, I thought, oh yeah, they want to help. I think they feel shame that they're not doing more, and they can't do more. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can donate.
Yeah.
That is doing something. They can donate to good NGOs that support. If you understand what I'm saying, that I actually,
get it.
as a filmmaker, I realized something with Line in the Sand, which is that, I mean, this is one scene. It's in the desert. The girl's got her clothes are all tattered up, and she's standing all alone at the border wall. There's nobody around. And Anthony Aguero, who's in the film, asks, ¿Dónde está tu madre? And she says, it's in heaven. Mm. Where's your father? Oh, he's dead. And it's like, whoa. And her eyes are bloodshot, and she had some things done to her. This is not fiction.
Yeah,
this is real.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the movies,
yeah.
But those movies have actresses. Yeah. This is a real human being, and most people sitting in their living room are like, I can't handle this.
Yeah.
My point to you is this: that what we're talking about right now is indicative of a much larger problem in society. I don't know if the American people are willing or able or I don't know if they are comfortable with knowing the truth.
Right. Because it's hard to sort of go along with your life like, oh, everything in my life is great, it's grand, and there's this thing going on.
I don't want to know about
here.
it. I don't want to know about it.
I'd rather
I don't want to know about it. I don't want to know about the evil within me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's always the other guy that's greedy. It's always the other guy that's jealous. I'm not jealous. Well, come on.
I don't want to know about the evil that's happening 30 minutes that way towards D.C.
I don't want. Well, that Lord knows that's where I'm going tonight. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. But this is a really important point that I learned. You asked me what I learned. Line in the Sand. God works in mysterious ways because I would not have been able to make Line in the Sand had I not been fired from Project Veritas. So I was freed up a little bit, so I could spend 5 months in the desert. I was running an organization with 70 employees. I was having to raise $2 million a month, all donations.
That's crazy.
No profit.
And mind you, they wanted you to do all that, raise the money, and not be able to do anything with it.
Uber carpool.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so stupid, but the point is, like,
here's your bicycle, James.
I was in the desert, and I saw those Border Patrol agents just shrugging their shoulders. I wouldn't say they're bad people. I would say they're weak people. They needed the paycheck. They needed the money. And I did not know this. I was naive. I was once blind, but now I see. And I realized that it's really, most of it was about money, and these children, these unaccompanied children, are just commodities in a industrial system of mass industry.
Sure.
And I thought it was about something else, perhaps a conspiracy, a United Nations, or I don't know what the story was going to be. And when I realized, the cartel gets $10,000 per kid, and drugs can be used once, like a cocaine can be used once and then it's into the ether,
Sure.
but a child can be used over and over again. It gets really dark, and it was very hard for me to process this. It was very hard for me to process this spiritually, let alone capture it on video. So the bottom line is there's no reward in this life, ultimately, for telling the truth. There's no real reward for that. Not in a bodily sense.
Right.
You don't become rich truth telling.
Yeah.
You don't become wealthy talking about the sins of others and the sins of yourself, if you're really honest.
Sure.
Perhaps the only rewards are spiritual ones.
Yeah.
And that's why this becomes a spiritual war quite quickly, the more truth you tell.
You have this thing on your wall, my price is my life. And I think what you just said sums that up very well. Because when you do the right thing, it's not always easy. When you do the right thing on a very large scale, you're going to have people that don't like you. And you know the risks that you do. And you know that there's bad people out there. And you're there to essentially call them out. And here, not just call them out with the guess or with just we think this is your boots on the ground. You have, detailed information with your reports, and you have evidence and photo and video and people saying these things that they did privately, and then publicly they're saying it completely a 180. And your undercover journalism I think it is sparked with so many.
It has,
folks.
because people live vicariously through us, and they want to destroy that people don't like the mirror. They want to destroy the entity that could expose them.
Right.
It's pretty, that concept I think people can understand. It's like, you want to destroy me because you stole checks, or the person over here stole checks. So I need to destroy the entity that can expose me for my bad behavior. It's very biblical. It's very deep.
And then it gets worse. For me with business, it's there's 1,000 ways you can rip people off, and I kind of always resorted back to this one thing, and this is where they take a bite of that apple, they'll take a bigger chunk next time. It actually comes from Batman. You know why Batman never kills anybody? He always just beats them up, and he doesn't kill them because he says, the second I do that first one, it's a lot easier to kill that second one. It's a lot easier to kill that third person. And that, these are bad guys, So it's just, you'll go down that path. And that's what happened with a lot of these people is, whether if they're in politics or private corporate greed or big pharma, at one point they made a decision. And that decision led them down that path. And like you said with the mirror, is they don't want to look at that mirror. They'd rather go down this path more and get more corrupt and more bad. And until they're called out, while all this is going on, they're surrounding themselves with other people who are like-minded. And then until they get caught out by someone like you or somebody else, then it's like that's the way they're going. And then reality hits, and then you see them running from the camera. They see them.
I'm reminded by George Skakel in the film I made, and he said James is not a business guy. It's a very interesting statement. I don't know if you remember that from the movie. Yeah. Because he said the price is my life is really about, so in the market economy, and even in every economy, in your store, there's a price, there's a supply, there's a demand. You set a price point, right, for your product.
Sure.
I don't even call it a business. It's not really a business. In my mission, there is no price.
Yeah.
There's no price. So if you say, okay, O'Keefe, I'll give you $3 million for you not run the story, I'd probably take out my hidden camera and record you. I mean, but in any other business,
Yeah.
That there's nothing ethically wrong with you selling your business. You say someone offers you, don't answer the question, but if someone offered you $100 million for this parcel, for this lot, I think it'd be crazy not to take that deal,
I'd
you
be
could go
hanging
take
out
that money and
on my boat.
You could,
Yeah.
but you could have 10 consignment
Sure.
stores. You could. It's a silly. In any other business, there's nothing wrong with you
Right.
having a price
Right.
for your service. But in my business,
Your price is your life.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't have any integrity if I bear false witness. If I
Right.
say, I'm so sorry for filming Mr. Messina in D.C., I was wrong to record him. I'm a liar.
And then that comes out, and then it's all of your face value. Everybody that goes, okay, well, now
Here's the rub, as Shakespeare would say. Now I got to spend 50 days alone away from my loved ones, running around the country, asking people for money to pay lawyers. The price is so high. The opportunity cost, the time it takes for me to, it's like the horse in Animal Farm just plowing the field with ropes attached to it, trying to survive, paying this extremely high price so that I don't have to pay a price. And that's why people don't do it, because it's just so, and I'm not a victim. I'm not complaining. I'm trying to, I have not yet figured out how to make this sustainable. You know what I mean?
I have two more questions because I know you.
We got to go.
Go. So. One of them, I kind of want to hear from your mouth.
Yeah, tell me.
Who is James O'Keefe?
Can you help me understand so I don't rant about a bunch of different stuff?
And less than a minute. Who is James O'Keefe beyond the journalist?
Beyond the journalist.
Beyond the journalist.
That's quite a question. I don't think I've ever been asked.
Welcome
that
to the psychology room.
I love this. You're very good at what you do. Let me just think about that for a minute. Kind of like my story since inception, if you will, or in 60 seconds.
Just who are you?
Who
do you feel that you are?
I'm an artist who cares about justice and who cares about equality before the law. I believe in the best in people.
Mm-hmm.
Since I was raised to believe the best in people. I believe in right and wrong and exposing evil. I'm probably a little bit of a dreamer, and I was an idealist. I don't know if I still am. But that's a really great question, and I
We answered it well.
I think I have to do some more thinking about that, because that's a really great question. Let me say that I think that I'm rapidly evolving and growing and learning more than I ever have in my life. I'm 40 years old, and I would say I learned more about myself in the last 2 years than the previous 38. So I'm learning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So to be continued on that one.
Lastly, where do you see private citizen journalism in the next 5 to 10 years?
There are no more institutions doing it. It's all individuals now. So Megan left Fox and Tucker left Fox, and you got the Joe Rogan and the Sean Ryan and all these individuals.
Sure.
I think it's going to be very difficult for any institution to do it. Even my institution, which is growing with 30 or 40 people now, but it's James O'Keefe Media.
Yeah.
It's no longer the Project Truth. It's individuals with extreme amounts of integrity.
Sure.
I think having a collective institution do it is going to be hard to sustain in the kind of spiritual environment we find ourselves in. And Elon buying X, I saw Charlie Kirk's post yesterday, the greatest thing to ever happen to Western civilization, in my opinion.
Probably freedom of speech, I would say, as well.
And that changed everything, because the barriers to entry were so low. When I got started, I mean, most people couldn't edit on your phone.
Yeah.
There wasn't even an iPhone when I was 19. There was a Kodak camera with a digital option and QuickTime on a website. There was no YouTube in 2005. It started in 2006. And now the barriers to entry are so low that you have an abundance of information, but most of it's crap.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of journalism. To answer your question, you'll have an infinite amount of quote unquote journalism, but none of it will actually be good. And you'll have a lot of raw information, like a podcast is I assume this will be mostly unedited. It's usually just an unedited stream of consciousness, but that's not journalism. If you look at what we do, it's who, what, when, where, why. We identify an LEDE lead. We identify what's the most important piece of information from a plethora of information. We present that up front, and that's kind of, you're acting as the custodian of the public's conscience. You're showing people what is newsworthy, what they need to know. I don't think people are really doing that. So I think you'll have a very small number of individuals who are really good at it.
Gotcha.
And that's where it's headed.
Well, cool, man. Well, I know you got to get going. And while we have you, let's see, how can people find you?
O'Keefe Media Group, OKEEFE, mediagroup.com, and you can subscribe and buy our movie, and we're coming out with 2 or 3 investigations every week, so follow us on social.
Well, in the future, I definitely want to have you on again. Let some time go, maybe a couple parts get under your belt, and maybe revisit after a while. And next time you're in the area, you're always welcome here. And I just want to say a lot of people, especially me, we really enjoy what you do.
Thank you.
It's not just on an entertainment value, because some of the stuff is funny as crap when people are running away from me with the camera. I just laugh my ass off, but it opens the eyes of what actually is going on in the world.
Thank you.
So thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.